I'm glad to have you here. Follow my story until the end and comment the city you're watching from. On Christmas Eve, after gifting my son Marcus a BMW and handing his wife Ava a $12,000 Hermes bag, I waited for the moment they would hand me something, anything that showed I mattered. Instead, my son cleared his throat and said, "Mom, we didn't get you anything this year. Ava says you need to learn to give without expecting anything back." Ava sat back with a satisfied smile, admiring her designer bag, completely unaware that I had spent the last 3 months documenting every lie she'd told, every dollar she'd stolen, and every text message she'd sent to the man she was planning to run away with after she destroyed my son's life. She had no idea that the envelope sitting in my drawer contained 47 photographs, 23 pages of bank statements, and 1 email that would shatter everything she'd built. But I'm getting ahead of myself. My name is Olivia Dawson. I'm 73 years old, and if you had told me last Christmas that this year I would be sitting in my Naples, Florida home planning to expose my daughter-in-law as a fraud and a cheat, I would never have believed you. But here I am. And honestly, I'm at peace with it, because some lessons cost you everything to learn, but they give you back something more valuable than any gift wrapped in shiny paper. They give you yourself. The first time I noticed something was wrong, I was standing in my kitchen staring at a basket of oranges. I'd bought them 4 days earlier at the Publix on Tamiami Trail, 12 bright, perfect Florida oranges that sat in their wicker basket on my counter like small suns. I bought them because Marcus loved fresh squeezed orange juice. When he was little, he'd stand beside me on a step stool while I cut them in half, waiting for his glass like it was liquid gold. But Marcus hadn't been by in 3 weeks. Those oranges just sat there untouched, and I realized the only reason I still bought them was for a son who no longer came around. I threw them away that afternoon. All of them. The basket, too. The house felt different after that. Bigger. Quieter. The kind of quiet that presses against your ears until you turn on the television just to hear another human voice, even if it's a stranger selling you insurance you don't need. My husband Ray had been gone 2 years by then. 2 years of waking up to an empty bed. 2 years of cooking meals for one. 2 years of learning that the life you build with someone for 40 years doesn't just disappear when they do. It keeps going. Only now you're walking through it alone, like moving through a museum of your own memories. Ray died on a Tuesday in March. Massive heart attack while reading the newspaper in his favorite chair, the brown leather one by the window that overlooked the garden he'd spent 20 years perfecting. The doctors said he didn't suffer. I'm still not sure if that makes it better or worse. Marcus had been my anchor during those first terrible months. He called every single day, sometimes twice. He'd stop by after work just to sit with me on the back porch, letting me cry without trying to fix anything because there was nothing to fix. His father was gone, and no amount of talking or planning or doing could change that. "I'm here, Mom," he'd say, holding my hand while the sun set over the neighbor's fence. "I'm not going anywhere." But then he met Ava. At first I was happy for him. Genuinely happy. My son was 35 years old, and after 2 failed relationships in his 20s, I'd started to worry he'd given up on finding someone. When he called me that June evening, his voice bright with excitement, telling me he'd met someone special, my heart lifted for the first time in months. "Her name's Ava Montgomery," he said. "She's incredible, Mom. Smart, beautiful, ambitious. We met at a gallery opening downtown. She works at this boutique on 5th Avenue and does lifestyle content on Instagram. She's got like 150,000 followers." I didn't know what lifestyle content meant, but I smiled and said all the right things. I told him I couldn't wait to meet her. I told him he deserved happiness. I told him his father would be so proud. And I meant it. I really did. The first time Marcus brought Ava to the house, it was late July. The air conditioning was fighting a losing battle against the Florida heat, and I'd spent the morning making iced tea and arranging cheese and crackers on the good china, the kind you only use when you want to make a good impression. I opened the door, and there she was. Ava Montgomery was 29 years old and looked like she'd stepped out of a magazine. Long dark hair that fell in perfect waves past her shoulders. Skin that glowed with expensive skincare products. Designer sunglasses pushed up on her head even though the sun was already setting. She wore a white linen dress that probably cost more than my electric bill, and when she smiled, it was the kind of smile that looked practiced, professional, like she'd spent hours in front of a mirror perfecting it. "Mrs. Dawson," she said, extending her hand. Not a hug, a handshake. "It's so wonderful to finally meet you. Marcus has told me so much about you." Her hand was cool and smooth. Mine felt rough and old in comparison. "Please call me Olivia," I said, stepping aside to let them in. Come in, I made iced tea." Marcus looked happy. That was the thing that mattered most to me in that moment. My son looked genuinely happy for the first time since his father died, and I wanted to protect that happiness at any cost. We sat in the living room, Marcus and I on the couch where he'd grown up watching Saturday morning cartoons Ava in Ray's chair. She sat carefully like she was worried about wrinkling her dress. Her eyes scanned the room while Marcus talked about work, about a new project he was managing, about how well things were going. Ava pulled out her phone twice during the conversation. The first time she apologized. "Sorry, work thing." The second time she didn't bother explaining. She just smiled absently and scrolled while my son kept talking, not seeming to notice, or maybe not wanting to notice, that his girlfriend wasn't really present. I noticed. "So Ava," I said, trying to draw her into the conversation, "Marcus mentioned you work at a boutique downtown." She looked up from her phone like I'd interrupted something important. "Oh, yeah, part-time. It's really more about the networking and building my brand. I'm a lifestyle influencer, fashion, wellness, travel content. That's where the real opportunities are." "That sounds interesting," I said, even though I had no idea what any of that meant. "Is it lucrative?" Marcus jumped in quickly. "Ava's building something really special, Mom. She's got a vision." Ava smiled at him. It was different from the smile she'd given me, warmer, more genuine, or maybe just better acted. "Marcus gets it. Not everyone understands the influencer economy, but it's the future." I nodded and poured more iced tea. They stayed for an hour. When they left, Marcus hugged me tight at the door. "Thanks, Mom. I know she can seem a little focused, but she's great once you get to know her." "She seems lovely, sweetheart," I said, because that's what mothers do. We lie when the truth might hurt our children. I watched them drive away, Marcus in his practical Honda Civic, Ava in the passenger seat, already back on her phone, and I felt something I couldn't quite name. Not dislike exactly. More like wariness. Like watching a storm build on the horizon and knowing you should probably close the windows. But I pushed the feeling aside. I told myself I was being overly protective, that I was judging her too harshly because she wasn't what I'd imagined for my son, that every mother probably feels this way when their child brings home someone new. I told myself a lot of things that summer. All of them were wrong. September came, and with it silence. The phone calls that had been my lifeline 3, sometimes 4 times a week started to slow. A call here, a text there, then nothing for days at a time. At first, Marcus had explanations. "Sorry I haven't called Mom. Work's been crazy." Or, "Ava and I have been busy with wedding planning." They'd gotten engaged in August after dating for barely 2 months, but I'd bitten my tongue and said congratulations. Then the explanations stopped too. I'd text him simple things. Nothing demanding, nothing that would make me seem like the clingy mother I was terrified of becoming. "Hope work is going well. Let me know if you want to come by for dinner." He'd reply hours later, sometimes the next day. "Busy, maybe next week." "Saw your favorite show is back on. Made me think of you." "Cool, thanks, Mom." "Miss you, sweetheart." "You too." Short, distant. Like I was someone he barely knew instead of the woman who'd raised him, who'd sat beside his hospital bed when he had pneumonia at age 7, who'd taught him to drive and helped him move into his first apartment, and held him when his father died. I tried to tell myself it was normal. Newlyweds, they'd gotten married in a quiet courthouse ceremony in early September with just 2 witnesses and no family invited, needed time to build their life together. That was healthy. That was what couples did. But mothers know. We feel distance the way you feel a coming storm. Something shifts in the air. Something tightens in your chest. Something whispers that things are not okay even when you desperately want them to be. One evening in late September, I sat on my back porch watching the sunset. The air was still warm, the kind of warmth Florida keeps even as the rest of the country starts pulling out sweaters. Ray's garden was blooming hibiscus and bougainvillea in shades of red and orange and pink. He'd planted most of it himself, spending hours in the dirt on weekends, coming inside with soil under his fingernails and a satisfied smile on his face. "A garden is patience made visible," he used to say. "You plant something small, you tend it, and if you're lucky, it becomes something beautiful." I stared at those flowers and thought about Marcus, about how I'd planted something small, a tiny baby placed in my arms 35 years ago, and tended it with everything I had. And he had become something beautiful, kind, thoughtful, loyal. But now someone else was tending him. Someone else was shaping him. And I could feel him changing, could feel him pulling away like a plant turning toward a different light. I pulled out my phone, stared at his name in my contacts. My thumb hovered over the call button. What would I even say? Why don't you call me anymore? Did I do something wrong? Do you still love me? The question sounded pathetic, even in my head. A mother begging her grown son for attention. So I didn't call. I just sat there watching the sky turn from pink to purple to dark, feeling the weight of loneliness settle deeper into my bones. My phone buzzed. For a second, my heart lifted. Maybe Marcus was thinking of me, too. Maybe. But it was just a text from Janice Porter, my friend from the neighborhood. Book club this Thursday, we're reading that mystery you liked. I typed back, I'll be there. At least someone still wanted my company. The text came on a Saturday morning in early October. I was in the kitchen making coffee and trying to decide if I had enough energy to grocery shop or if I could stretch what was in the refrigerator one more day. My phone lit up Marcus Dawson. My heart jumped the way it always did when I saw his name. I grabbed the phone like it might disappear if I didn't move fast enough. Hey, Mom. Me and Ava might stop by this weekend if we have time. She wants to talk to you about something. I read it 3 times. Might stop by. If we have time. Not I want to see you, or I miss you. And the second part, she wants to talk to you about something. Not Marcus. Ava. I typed back immediately. Of course. When were you thinking I'll make dinner? The response came 20 minutes later. Tonight around 6, don't go to any trouble. Don't go to any trouble. I spent the next 8 hours preparing. I scrubbed the kitchen counters even though they were already clean. I vacuumed the living room. I changed the hand towels in the bathroom. I set out fresh flowers, white roses from the grocery store arranged in the crystal vase Ray gave me for our 20th anniversary. And I cooked. Roast chicken with garlic and rosemary the way Marcus loved it as a child. Mashed potatoes made from scratch with real butter and cream. Cornbread Ray's recipe, the one his mother had passed down to him, the one that required buttermilk and a cast-iron skillet and patience. Green beans sautéed with bacon. Cranberry sauce from scratch, not the canned kind. By 5:30, the house smelled like home, like Sunday dinners when Marcus was growing up, like Thanksgiving and birthdays and all the ordinary Tuesdays that had made up our family life. I wanted Marcus to walk in and smell this. I wanted him to remember what it felt like to be loved without conditions, without complications, without someone telling him what to think or feel or do. I wanted my son back. At 6:15, I heard a car in the driveway. I checked my reflection in the hallway mirror one last time. I'd put on a nice blouse. Nothing fancy, just the blue one Marcus had complimented once. I'd even put on a little makeup, which I rarely bothered with anymore. The doorbell rang. I opened the door, and there he was. My son. Marcus looked tired, more tired than a 35-year-old should look, but when he saw me, he smiled. A real smile. The kind that crinkled the corners of his eyes. Hey, Mom. Hey, sweetheart. I hugged him, and for just a second, just one perfect second, he hugged me back the way he used to. Tight, safe, like I was still the person he came to when the world felt too big. Then Ava stepped out of the car and the moment ended. She was wearing sunglasses even though the sun was setting. A designer purse hung from her shoulder. I recognized the interlocking C's of Chanel. Her outfit probably cost more than I spent on clothes in a year. She walked up the driveway slowly, her heels clicking against the concrete, scrolling through her phone. Hi, Olivia, she said without looking up. Not warm, not cold, just neutral. Come in, I said, stepping aside. Dinner's almost ready. Marcus's face lit up when he stepped inside. Mom, it smells amazing. Is that chicken and cornbread? I finished. Your favorites. He grinned. You didn't have to do all this. I wanted to, I said simply. Because I did. Because cooking for my son was one of the few ways I had left to show him I loved him. Ava wandered into the living room while Marcus and I headed to the kitchen. She didn't take off her sunglasses, just looked around like she was assessing real estate instead of visiting her mother-in-law's home. I pulled the chicken from the oven and Marcus appeared at my shoulder with a kitchen towel ready to help carry dishes to the table like he'd done 1,000 times growing up. How have you been, Mom? He asked quietly. Really? I'm good, sweetheart. I lied. Keeping busy. Janice and I have been going to book club. The garden's doing well. I'm sorry I haven't called more. Work has been... It's okay, I said quickly. Too quickly. Because it wasn't okay, but I didn't want him to feel guilty. Didn't want to be the mother who made her adult son feel bad for living his own life. We carried the food to the dining room. I'd set the table with the good china white plates with delicate blue flowers around the edges, the ones Ray and I got as a wedding gift 43 years ago. Cloth napkins, the silver candlesticks that had been his grandmother's. Ava sat down and immediately pulled out her phone. She took a photo of her plate, just the plate, not me, not Marcus, not the effort I'd put into this meal, and started typing. Marcus noticed me watching. "She's just posting for her followers," he said, like that explained everything. Like it was normal to photograph your dinner instead of having a conversation with the people who made it. We ate. Or rather, Marcus and I ate. Ava picked at her food, moving it around her plate while her thumbs moved across her phone screen. The blue light illuminated her face in the candlelight. "This is delicious, Mom," Marcus said around a mouthful of chicken. "Seriously, I forgot how good your cooking is." "I'm glad you like it, honey." "Ava, you should try the cornbread. Mom makes it from my dad's recipe." Ava looked up briefly. "I'm not really a carb person." She set her fork down and went back to her phone. I felt something cold settle in my stomach. Not anger exactly, more like sadness. This woman couldn't even be bothered to pretend to enjoy a meal I'd spent hours preparing. Couldn't be bothered to put down her phone for 20 minutes to have dinner with her husband and his mother. And Marcus just sat there accepting it. Like this was normal. Like this was fine. We finished eating in near silence. I asked Marcus about work. He told me about a promotion he was hoping for a project he was managing. I asked questions. He answered. Ava scrolled. After dinner, Marcus helped me clear the table. Ava stayed in the dining room, phone still in hand. "She's pretty absorbed in her work," I said carefully as Marcus scraped plates into the trash. "Yeah, she's really focused on growing her brand right now. It's important to her." "I can see that." There was something in my tone that made him stop and look at me. "You don't like her." "I didn't say that." "You don't have to say it, Mom. I can tell." I set down the dish I was holding and turned to face my son. "Marcus, I barely know her. You've been together 4 months. You got married 6 weeks ago, and I've spent maybe 3 hours total in her company. How can I like or dislike someone I don't know?" "You don't need to know someone to judge them." The words stung. "I'm not judging her, sweetheart. I'm trying to get to know her, and she won't put down her phone long enough for me to do that." Marcus's jaw tightened. "She's building a business, Mom. She's trying to create something. Not everyone understands that, but I do." "I understand hard work, Marcus. I worked 30 years as a school secretary while raising you and helping your father build his landscaping business. Don't tell me I don't understand hard work." "That's not what I—" He stopped, took a breath. "Look, I didn't come here to fight." "Neither did I." I reached out and touched his arm. "I'm sorry. I miss you. That's all." His expression softened. "I miss you too, Mom." For a moment, we just stood there in the kitchen where I'd raised him, where I'd packed his lunches and cleaned his scraped knees, and later taught him how to cook eggs when he went off to college. Where I'd told him his father had died holding him while he sobbed in this very spot. Then Ava's voice called from the living room. "Marcus, can you come here for a second?" The moment broke. Marcus gave me a quick smile, apologetic, tired, and walked out. I stood alone in the kitchen, staring at the dirty dishes, listening to their muffled voices from the other room. I couldn't make out everything they were saying, but I caught fragments. Ava's voice low but insistent. "This place could sell for so much." Marcus, "Not the right time." Ava, "We're struggling, and she's one person in all this space." My chest tightened. I turned on the faucet to drown out their voices and started washing dishes with shaking hands. The hot water scalded my fingers, but I barely felt it. They were talking about my house, about selling it, about how I didn't need all this space. This house where Ray and I raised our son, where we celebrated 40 Christmases, where Ray took his last breath in his favorite chair by the window. This house that was the only thing I had left of the life we built together. And my daughter-in-law, who I'd met exactly 3 times, was standing in my living room telling my son I should give it up. I scrubbed a plate so hard I thought it might crack. When I walked back into the living room 5 minutes later, my smile firmly in place, Ava was on her phone again. Marcus stood by the window, hands in his pockets, looking out at the darkening street. "Anyone want coffee?" I asked brightly. "I made a peach cobbler, too." Actually, we should probably get going, Ava said, standing up and smoothing her dress. Early day tomorrow. Marcus looked surprised. I thought, remember I have that meeting with the photographer. She was already heading toward the door purse over her shoulder, phone in hand. Marcus turned to me with an apologetic shrug. Thanks for dinner, Mom. It really was great. He hugged me quick obligatory and followed his wife to the door. I stood on the porch and watched them get into Marcus's car. Ava was already on her phone before she even closed the car door. Marcus looked back at me, once raised his hand in a small wave and pulled out of the driveway. I stood there long after the taillights disappeared, the Florida evening warm and thick around me, feeling more alone than I had in the 2 years since Ray died. Back inside, I looked at the dining room table. 3 place settings, 3 chairs. Evidence that people had been here, but somehow the house felt emptier now than it had before they arrived. I sat down in Ray's chair, the leather one by the window, and stared at the wall where family photos hung in mismatched frames. Marcus at 5 years old, gap-toothed and grinning. Marcus at high school graduation. Marcus and Ray working on a science project at this very table. There were no photos of Ava. We'd never taken any together. I closed my eyes and remembered something Ray used to say. Trust your gut, Liv. It's never wrong. My gut was screaming that something was very, very wrong with my son's wife. I just didn't know how wrong yet. 3 weeks passed. Marcus texted me twice. Short messages. Hope you're doing well. Busy week, talk soon. I didn't hear from him at all after that. Then on a Saturday in late October, my phone rang. Marcus's name lit up the screen and my heart did that pathetic little leap of hope it always did. Hey, sweetheart, I answered, trying not to sound as desperate as I felt. Hey, Mom. His voice was warm, almost like the old Marcus. Listen, Ava and I are having a little cookout at our place this afternoon. Nothing fancy, just burgers and hanging out. You should come. I was so surprised I almost dropped the phone. Really? Yeah, I know it's been a while. Thought it would be nice. Around 2. I'd love to, I said, trying to keep the relief out of my voice. Can I bring anything? Just yourself. See you then. After we hung up, I stood in my kitchen smiling like an idiot. He wanted to see me. He'd invited me to his home. Maybe things were getting better. Maybe I'd been wrong about Ava. Maybe she just needed time to warm up to me. Mothers are excellent at lying to ourselves when the truth is too painful to face. I spent the morning getting ready. I bought a store-made potato salad from Publix, the good kind with the red potatoes and fresh dill, and a bottle of decent wine. I wore a nice blouse, not too fancy, but not too casual either. I even put on makeup and a little perfume. The drive to their apartment complex took 20 minutes. They lived in a 2-bedroom rental near the highway, the kind of place young couples live while they save up for something better. The buildings were beige stucco with red tile roofs arranged around a parking lot that always seemed too small for the number of cars. I found their unit on the 2nd floor. Number 2 on 14. Marcus opened the door before I could even knock, like he'd been watching for me. Mom, come in. The apartment was small but neat. Minimal furniture, a couch that looked like it came from IKEA, a small TV on a stand, a folding table with 2 chairs in the kitchen area. Very different from the cluttered lived-in home where I'd raised him. It's lovely, I lied. Ava was in the kitchen area arranging paper plates on the folding table. She glanced up when I entered. Oh, hi, Olivia. Not warm, not welcoming, just acknowledging my presence. Hi, Ava. I brought potato salad and wine. Great, you can put it in the fridge. I handed the dish to Marcus, who carried it to the small refrigerator. As he opened it, I caught a glimpse inside. Not much food, some condiments, leftover takeout containers. And on the counter beside the fridge, partially hidden behind a dish towel, I saw something that made my stomach drop. A shopping bag, the kind you get from expensive stores. I could see the edge of a shoebox inside Louboutin, the distinctive red sole visible. Another box, also designer, peeked out from behind it. Marcus saw me looking and quickly moved the bag out of sight. So, you want something to drink, Mom? I've got iced tea. That would be lovely. We went out to the small balcony. Marcus had set up a tiny charcoal grill, the kind you get at Target, for $20. It overlooked the parking lot, but he'd tried to make it nice. 2 folding chairs. A string of lights that probably came from the same Target trip. For a little while, it felt almost normal. Marcus flipped burgers and told me about work. About a big project he'd landed, about his boss finally noticing his efforts. He laughed at something I said, really laughed the way he used to, and I felt that tight knot in my chest loosen just a little. Then Ava stepped onto the balcony phone pressed to her ear. "Babe, I'm taking this call real quick," she said without looking at either of us. Marcus nodded. "Sure." Ava walked down the stairs to the small patch of grass near the fence that separated the complex from the next property over. She stood with her back to us, phone to her ear, her free hand gesturing as she talked. Marcus and I kept talking. He told me about his coworker Steve, who reminded him of his father, the way he organized his desk, the terrible dad jokes he told that somehow still made people laugh. "Dad would have liked him," Marcus said softly. "Your father would be so proud of you, sweetheart," I said. "Of the man you've become." Something flickered across his face. Something sad. Would he? Before I could answer, I heard it. Ava's voice carried on the wind. She was far enough away that she probably thought we couldn't hear, but the acoustics of the apartment complex created strange echoes, and her voice drifted up to us in fragments. "No, he doesn't suspect anything." I froze pretzel halfway to my mouth. Marcus was focused on the grill, oblivious. Ava kept talking, her voice low but clear enough. "Just give me time." I set down my drink carefully, not wanting to make any noise that might alert her or distract me from hearing. "Once the house sells, everything will fall into place." The world tilted sideways. Marcus flipped a burger, humming under his breath. "I just need him to convince her." My hands started to shake. "She won't see it coming." I couldn't breathe, couldn't move, could only sit there listening to my daughter-in-law discuss my house, my home, like it was already hers to sell. Ava laughed, a soft, satisfied laugh. Said a few more words I couldn't make out, then ended the call. She turned and started walking back up the stairs. I picked up my iced tea with trembling hands and took a sip, fighting to keep my face neutral. Marcus glanced over at me. "You okay, Mom? You look a little pale." "I'm fine, sweetheart, just the heat." Ava returned to the balcony, slipping her phone into her pocket. She sat down in the chair beside me and smiled that practiced professional smile. "Everything good?" Marcus asked. "Yeah, just work stuff," she said smoothly. I looked at her, really looked at her for the first time since I'd arrived. And I saw her clearly now. Not as my son's wife. Not as someone who just needed time to warm up to me. I saw her as exactly what she was, someone with a plan. Someone who had identified a target and was executing a strategy. Someone who saw my home, my life's work, my last connection to my husband as nothing more than an asset to be acquired. My phone, my house, my son. The rest of the afternoon passed in a blur. I don't remember what we talked about. I don't remember what the food tasted like. All I could hear was Ava's voice on that phone call echoing in my head. "Once the house sells, everything will fall into place." Not if, once. Like it was already decided. When it was time to leave, Marcus walked me to my car. The sun was setting, painting the parking lot in shades of orange and gold. "Thanks for coming, Mom," he said, hugging me. A real hug this time, the kind that made me want to cry. "It was really good to see you." "I love you, sweetheart," I said, holding on maybe a second too long. "So much. Love you too." I got in my car and drove home in complete silence. No radio, no music. Just the sound of my breathing and the rush of traffic and my own thoughts spinning in circles. He doesn't suspect anything. Who was she talking to? What didn't Marcus suspect? Once the house sells. She was already planning for it. Already dividing up money that wasn't hers. Already treating my home like it was a done deal. She won't see it coming. But I had. I'd heard every word. I pulled into my driveway and sat there for a long time, hands still gripping the steering wheel, staring at the front door. The house Ray and I had bought 35 years ago when Marcus was just a baby. The house we'd painted together, argued about landscaping for filled with furniture and memories and life. The house where Ray died. The house Ava wanted to sell. I walked inside on legs that felt disconnected from my body. The house was dark. I didn't bother turning on lights, just walked through the living room past the family photos on the wall and sank down into Ray's chair by the window. And I cried. Not the quiet, dignified tears of grief I'd shed at Ray's funeral. Ugly, gulping sobs that shook my whole body. Because I'd just heard my daughter-in-law plotting to steal my home and there was nothing I could do about it. Or was there? I sat up slowly, wiping my eyes with the back of my hand. Took a deep, shaking breath. Ava had underestimated me. She'd looked at a 73-year-old widow and seen someone weak, someone easy to manipulate, someone who would roll over and let her take whatever she wanted. She was wrong. Ray's voice echoed in my memory. When someone shows you who they are, believe them. But when they hide it, investigate. I stood up and walked to my bedroom, opened the drawer of my nightstand and pulled out my address book, the actual paper kind because I'm 73 and I don't keep everything on my phone. I flipped to the P section, found the number I needed. Tomorrow morning I would call Janice, and then I would do exactly what Ray would have done. I would investigate, because I was done being weak, done being passive, done letting someone destroy my son's life while I sat by and watched. Ava thought she was 10 steps ahead. She thought she'd already won. She had no idea the game was just beginning. I called Janice at 8 o'clock Sunday morning. She answered on the second ring, her voice cheerful and warm. "Olivia, I was just thinking about you. How are you, honey?" "I need your help," I said without preamble. "Can I come over?" There was a pause. Janice had known me for 40 years. She knew the difference between I need to chat and something is very wrong. "Come right now," she said. "I'll put coffee on." Janice Porter lived 10 minutes away in a small yellow house with a garden that always looked better than mine. She'd been widowed 8 years ago when her husband Robert died of cancer. Unlike me, she'd navigated widowhood with a kind of fierce independence I admired. She'd sold Robert's vintage car collection, taken a cruise to Alaska, and started volunteering at the animal shelter. She didn't just survive losing her partner, she'd built a whole new life. I needed that kind of strength right now. She opened the door before I could knock, took one look at my face, and pulled me into a hug. "Kitchen," she said firmly. "Now." Janice's kitchen was painted a cheerful yellow with copper pots hanging from the ceiling and herbs growing in pots on the windowsill. She poured 2 cups of coffee, real coffee strong and black, and sat down across from me at the small table where we'd shared countless conversations over the years. "Talk to me," she said. So I did. I told her everything. About Marcus pulling away, about Ava's coldness, about the expensive purchases on an entry-level boutique salary, about dinner at my house and the conversation I'd overheard about selling my home, and finally about yesterday's cookout and the phone call. When I finished, Janice sat back in her chair and stared at me for a long moment. "That absolute bitch," she said quietly. Coming from Janice, who rarely cursed, who'd taught Sunday school for 20 years, the word landed with the weight of a verdict. "I don't know what to do," I said, my voice breaking. "If I tell Marcus what I heard, he'll just defend her. He'll say I misunderstood. He'll think I'm being paranoid or jealous or trying to ruin his marriage." "Stop," Janice said firmly. She reached across the table and took my hands in hers. "Listen to me very carefully, Olivia. You cannot tell Marcus anything until you have proof. Not suspicions, not overheard phone calls that could be explained away. Proof. How am I supposed to get proof? The same way I did when I found out Robert was cheating." I stared at her. "Robert cheated on you." Janice smiled sadly. 10 years before he died. I suspected for months late nights at the office phone calls he took in another room, credit card charges that didn't make sense. But I didn't say anything because I had no proof. Just a feeling. "What did you do?" "I hired a private investigator." The words hung in the air between us. "Janice, listen to me. That investigator gave me photographs, bank statements, hotel receipts, email printouts. When I finally confronted Robert, he couldn't deny it, couldn't gaslight me, couldn't make me feel crazy, because I had everything documented." "What happened?" "I told him he had 2 choices: end the affair immediately and go to counseling with me, or I'd file for divorce and take half of everything. He chose counseling. We had another good 8 years before the cancer." She squeezed my hands. "I'm not saying I'm glad I hired that investigator, but I'm glad I knew the truth, and I'm glad I handled it on my terms, not his. I thought about this, about Marcus, about what I'd overheard. This isn't just about an affair, though," I said slowly. "This is about my house, about Ava using Marcus to convince me to sell." "And what else?" Janice interrupted. "You heard her say he doesn't suspect anything." "Suspect what? That she's manipulating him. Maybe. Or maybe there's more to it. Maybe she's planning something worse. Like what? I don't know. That's why you need a professional to find out." I pulled my hands back and wrapped them around my coffee mug. The warmth felt good against my palms. "Do you still have the investigator's number?" "Better than that. His name is Victor Patel. He's retired from the police force, but still does private investigation work. He's discreet professional and very good at what he does. She stood up and walked to a drawer, pulled out a business card, and handed it to me. Victor Patel, Private Investigations, discretion guaranteed. Below was a phone number and an address on Main Street in downtown Naples. I stared at the card. Hiring someone to investigate your own family felt like a betrayal. It felt like admitting that love and trust weren't enough, that I needed evidence to protect my own son from his wife. But then I thought about Ava's voice on that phone call, the coldness in it, the calculation. She won't see it coming. I looked up at Janice. What if I'm wrong? What if there's an innocent explanation and I'm just a paranoid old woman who can't let go of her son? Janice sat back down and looked at me with the kind of steady, clear-eyed certainty that comes from having survived something terrible and come out stronger. Then you'll know that too, she said. And you can let it go. But Olivia, I have known you for 40 years. You are not paranoid. You are not controlling. You are careful. And your instincts have never been wrong. But no buts. Call him, today. Because if your instincts are right, and I think they are, then your son is in danger. Not physical danger, maybe, but the kind that ruins lives. Financial danger. Emotional danger. And you can't protect him if you don't know what you're protecting him from. I looked down at the card again. Victor Patel, discretion guaranteed. Okay, I said quietly. I'll call him. Janice smiled. Good. And Olivia, one more thing. What? You're not doing this because you're weak or clingy or can't let go. You're doing this because you're a mother. And that's what mothers do. We protect our children. Even when they're grown. Even when they don't know they need protecting. Even when it costs us everything. I felt tears sting my eyes. Thank you. Don't thank me yet. Wait until you see what Mr. Patel finds. Monday morning, I woke up at 5:30 with Victor Patel's business card on my nightstand. I'd put it there before going to bed, like keeping it close would give me the courage I needed. I stared at it in the gray pre-dawn light. The card was simple white with black lettering, nothing fancy, but it represented a line I was about to cross. Once I made this call, once I hired someone to investigate my daughter-in-law, there would be no going back. I made coffee, sat at the kitchen table, watched the sun come up over the neighbor's fence, thought about Marcus as a little boy running through this very kitchen with a superhero cape tied around his neck, convinced he could save the world. Now I was the one who had to save him. At 9 o'clock sharp, I dialed the number. A man answered on the third ring. Patel Investigations. His voice was calm, professional, with just a hint of an accent. Hello, I said, my voice steadier than I felt. My name is Olivia Dawson. Janice Porter gave me your number. She said you might be able to help me. Ah, yes, Mrs. Porter. How is she? She's well. She speaks very highly of you. That's kind of her. What can I do for you, Mrs. Dawson? I took a deep breath. I need you to investigate my daughter-in-law. I think she's planning something that will hurt my son, but I don't have proof. Just a feeling, and one conversation I overheard. I see. Are you available to meet in person? These matters are better discussed face to face. Yes. When I have an opening at 2 o'clock this afternoon. My office is above Romano's Tax Services on Main Street, second floor suite 204. I'll be there. After we hung up, I sat very still listening to the house settle around me. Ray's house. Our house. The house Ava wanted to take. Not anymore. Victor Patel's office was exactly what I expected, small, neat, and distinctly unglamorous. The building was old, with narrow stairs that creaked under my feet. Suite 204 had frosted glass on the door with his name in simple black letters. I knocked. Come in. The office was a single room with a desk, 2 chairs, and filing cabinets along one wall. No fancy artwork, no diplomas hung for show. Just a workspace for someone who did serious work seriously. Victor Patel stood up when I entered. He was older than I expected, maybe 65, with steel gray hair and kind eyes behind wire-rimmed glasses. He wore a simple button-down shirt and slacks. He looked like someone's uncle, not like a private investigator. Maybe that was the point. Mrs. Dawson. He extended his hand. Please sit. His handshake was firm but gentle. I sat in the chair across from his desk and folded my hands in my lap, trying not to look as nervous as I felt. He sat back down and pulled out a yellow legal pad. Tell me everything. Start from the beginning and don't leave anything out. Even small details matter in cases like this. So I told him. All of it. I told him about Marcus pulling away after he met Ava, about the expensive purchases on a boutique salary, about dinner at my house and the conversation I'd overheard about my home being wasted space, about the cookout and the phone call he doesn't suspect anything once the house sells, she won't see it coming. Victor listened without interrupting. He took notes in small, neat handwriting. When I finished, he set down his pen and looked at me for a long moment. "Mrs. Dawson," he said carefully, "what you're describing is a classic pattern. I've seen it many times in my 30 years as a detective and now in my 15 years doing private investigation." "What pattern?" "Long con 3 elements are always present: isolation, financial pressure, and timeline urgency. Your daughter-in-law is isolating your son from you, his primary support system. She's creating financial pressure by living beyond their means, which makes your assets look like a solution. And she has a timeline which suggests she's working toward a specific goal with a deadline." My stomach dropped. What kind of goal? That's what we need to find out. The phone conversation you overheard, he doesn't suspect anything that's particularly concerning. It suggests there's something your son doesn't know, something she's actively hiding from him. Like what? Could be many things: an affair, hidden debt, a criminal background. Or, and this is often the case in situations involving property, she may be working with someone to defraud you of your home. I felt like I'd been punched. "You mean, like a scam?" "Possibly. Real estate fraud targeting elderly homeowners is more common than you'd think. Usually works like this: the scammer identifies a vulnerable target, in this case a widow living alone in a valuable property. They get close to the target's family member, marry them quickly, then pressure the elderly person to sign over power of attorney or deed rights for their own good. Once they have legal access, they sell the property and disappear with the money." "But Marcus would never—" "Your son probably has no idea he's being used. These people are professionals. They're very good at manipulation. They find someone lonely, vulnerable, looking for love, and they become exactly what that person needs, until they get what they want." I thought about Marcus after Ray died. How lost he'd been. How desperate for connection. How perfect a target he would have been. "Can you find out?" I asked quietly. "Can you find out what she's really doing? Who she really is?" Victor nodded. "Yes, but I need to be honest with you about something." "What?" "Sometimes when I investigate people, I find things my clients don't want to see. Not just about the subject of investigation, but about their loved ones, too. If your daughter-in-law is running a con, and your son is involved even unknowingly, the evidence may be painful. Are you prepared for that?" I thought about this. Really thought about it. "I'd rather know a painful truth," I said finally, "than live in a comforting lie." Victor smiled slightly. "That's a good answer. All right, Mrs. Dawson, here's what I can do. I'll conduct surveillance on your daughter-in-law for 2 to 3 weeks. I'll document her movements, her associations, her spending patterns. I'll run a background check, criminal records, credit history, previous marriages, if any. I have contacts who can help me access financial records, though that's a legal gray area." "Is it legal what you do?" "Everything I do is legal," he said carefully. "How I get certain information. Let's just say I have friends in useful places, but nothing I provide will be inadmissible in court if it comes to that." "How much will this cost?" He named a figure. $5,000 as a retainer, plus $150 per hour for active investigation. It was more than I wanted to spend. Less than losing my home would cost. "Okay," I said. "When can you start?" "Today. I'll need some information from you. Your daughter-in-law's full name, date of birth, if you know it, current address, place of employment, vehicle description." I gave him everything I knew. "Ava Montgomery, 29 years old, worked at Bellezza Boutique on 5th Avenue, lived with Marcus at Sunset Palms Apartments, Unit 214, drove a white Mercedes C-Class, which I'd always wondered how she afforded." Victor wrote it all down. Then he looked up at me. "One more thing, Mrs. Dawson. During this investigation, you need to act completely normal. Don't change your behavior toward your son or daughter-in-law. Don't ask unusual questions. Don't let on that you suspect anything. Can you do that?" "I think so." "Not think. Need to be sure. If she realizes she's being investigated, she'll cover her tracks. We'll lose our chance to find the truth." I straightened my shoulders. "I can do it." "Good." He stood and extended his hand again. "I'll be in touch within the week with a preliminary report. If I find anything urgent, I'll call immediately. I shook his hand and left, walking back down those creaky stairs with my purse lighter and my heart heavier. I'd just hired someone to investigate my family. Ray, I thought, what would you think of me now? But I knew what Ray would think. He'd think I was protecting our son, and he'd be proud. The next 2 weeks were the hardest of my life. I went through my normal routine grocery shopping on Tuesday mornings, book club with Janice on Thursday evenings, tending Ray's garden on weekends. I watered the hibiscus and pulled weeds and tried not to think about what Victor Patel might be discovering. Marcus texted me once during that time, just once. "Hey, Mom, hope you're doing okay. Work is crazy right now. We'll try to visit soon." I stared at that message for 10 minutes before responding. "Love you, sweetheart. Take care of yourself." He sent back a heart emoji. That was it. I wanted to call him, wanted to hear his voice to ask if he was eating enough, sleeping enough, if he was happy. But Victor's warning echoed in my head, act completely normal. So I didn't call. I just waited. Janice came over on the 10th day. She brought lemon bars and sat with me on the back porch while we watched the sunset. "Have you heard anything?" she asked. "Not yet. He said within a week, but it's been almost 2. "That might mean he's finding a lot," Janice said carefully. "The more evidence there is, the longer it takes to document properly. Or it might mean there's nothing to find and I've wasted $5,000 being a paranoid old woman." Janice gave me a look. "You're not paranoid, and you're not old. You're vigilant. There's a difference." "Doesn't feel like it." We sat in silence for a while, listening to the evening sounds, crickets, a neighbor's dog barking, the distant hum of traffic on the highway. "Whatever he finds," Janice said finally, "you'll deal with it. You're stronger than you think, Olivia." "I don't feel strong. I feel terrified." "That's because you love your son. Fear and love go together when it comes to our children. We're afraid of losing them, afraid of failing them, afraid of not being enough." She squeezed my hand. "But you're doing the right thing. Trust that." After she left, I sat on the porch alone until the stars came out. Ray used to love this time of evening. He'd sit in the chair next to mine, the chair that now sat empty, and we'd talk about nothing and everything. What Marcus did at school that day, what needed fixing in the house, plans for the weekend. "I miss you," I whispered to the empty chair. "I really, really miss you." The chair didn't answer. The stars didn't offer advice. I was alone with my fear and my waiting. On day 14, my phone rang at 2 in the afternoon. Unknown number. My heart jumped. "Hello. Mrs. Dawson, this is Victor Patel." I sat down immediately, my legs suddenly weak. "Did you find something?" "Yes. I think you should come to my office, today if possible. I can be there in 30 minutes. I'll be waiting." I grabbed my purse and keys with shaking hands and drove to downtown Naples on autopilot. I don't remember the drive. Don't remember parking. Don't remember climbing those stairs. I only remember knocking on Victor's door and hearing him say, "Come in." He was sitting at his desk with a thick manila folder in front of him. His expression was serious. Not angry, not judgmental, just serious. "Sit down, Mrs. Dawson." I sat. He looked at me for a long moment. "Before I show you what I've found, I want you to take a deep breath. What you're about to see is going to be difficult." My mouth went dry. "How difficult?" "Very, but you need to see it. You need to know the truth about who your daughter-in-law really is and what she's been doing." He opened the folder. The first thing Victor pulled from the folder was a photograph. He slid it across the desk slowly, like handling something fragile. I picked it up with trembling hands. It was Ava. Standing outside a restaurant I didn't recognize somewhere upscale, with valet parking and white tablecloths visible through the windows. She was wearing a dress I'd never seen, something expensive and clingy. But that wasn't what made my heart stop. It was the man standing beside her. He was tall, maybe 45, with graying hair and an expensive suit. His hand rested on the small of Ava's back, not casually, not politely, but intimately, possessively, the way a man touches a woman who belongs to him. Ava was smiling up at him, not the practiced professional smile she gave Marcus and me, a real smile, warm, genuine. "Who is this?" I managed to ask. "His name is David Brennan," Victor said. "He owns Brennan Commercial Properties, a real estate development firm based in Fort Myers. He specializes in acquiring and flipping commercial properties. Net worth approximately $12 million. I couldn't stop staring at the photo, at the way Ava looked at this man, at the way he touched her. Victor pulled out another photograph. This one showed Ava and David getting into a black Mercedes, not Ava's white C-Class, but a newer, more expensive model. David's hand was on her waist. She was laughing. Another photo. The two of them entering the Ritz-Carlton in Naples. The timestamp showed 3 o'clock in the afternoon on a Wednesday, a workday when Ava should have been at the boutique. "How long?" I whispered. "At least 4 months. Possibly longer. That's as far back as I could document with certainty." 4 months. They'd been together 4 months. Marcus and Ava had only been together 7 months total. So she was seeing this man when she met Marcus. Yes, and she never stopped. Victor pulled out more photographs. Dozens of them. Ava and David at different restaurants, getting into his car, entering hotels. One particularly damning photo showed them kissing in the parking lot of a strip mall. Not a peck, but a real kiss, the kind that left no doubt about their relationship. I felt sick. "There's more," Victor said gently. "The affair is bad, but it's not the worst part." "What could be worse than this?" He pulled out a stack of papers, receipts, bank statements, credit card bills. "Ava Montgomery's financial situation," he said, spreading them across the desk, "is far worse than she's let on to your son. She has significant debt. Credit cards, medical bills, a defaulted car loan. Total amount $47,000 in collections." I stared at the numbers. 47,000 pun. Yes, most of it accrued between 2 and 4 years ago. She was making minimum payments for a while, but about 8 months ago, right around when she met your son, she stopped paying entirely. The collections agencies have been calling constantly. She's been ignoring them. Does Marcus know? I don't believe so. She's been very careful to hide it. Separate phone for collections calls. Different address on file with creditors, a P.O. box. Your son probably has no idea how bad her financial situation is. My mind raced. The expensive things, the clothes, the purse, the jewelry. How can she afford all that if she's $47,000 in debt? Victor's expression darkened. That's where it gets interesting. He pulled out bank statements, not Ava's, but from an account I didn't recognize. These are deposits into a checking account under Ava's name, an account your son doesn't know about. In the last 6 months, there have been regular cash deposits. 5,000 here, 3,000 there, 4,000, 2,500. Total deposited $31,000. Where is this money coming from? I believe it's coming from David Brennan. She's being paid. The word hung in the air like poison. Paid, I repeated. Paid for what? Victor hesitated. Mrs. Dawson, I need to show you something else. An email exchange I was able to access through Ava's iCloud backup. She uses the same password for multiple accounts, poor security practice, but fortunate for us. He pulled out several printed pages. I've highlighted the relevant sections. I took the pages with numb fingers and started reading. From Ava Montgomery to David Brennan. Date October 8th. Subject timeline. Update. David Marcus is finally coming around. I've been working on him for months about his mother's house. He's starting to see my point. She doesn't need all that space. It's wasted on one old woman. She'd be happier somewhere smaller. The plan is still on track. I need to convince Marcus to talk to her about selling. He feels guilty about abandoning her after his dad died, so he'll do anything to make things better for her, including convincing her to downsize. Your estimate was $600K for the property, correct? Once she lists it, your firm can make an offer at $450K under market value, but still attractive for a quick sale. She'll think she's getting a good deal. Marcus will think he's helping his mother. We close fast. You flip it within 6 months for $650 out of $700K like we discussed. You get your profit. I get my cut, $150K total, $100K upfront, $50K after the flip. That pays off my debt and gives me enough to start fresh. After the house sale settles and the money is in Marcus's account, I wait 6 months. Then I file for divorce. Irreconcilable differences, quick and clean. In a marriage this short, I'll walk away with at least half of whatever's left after he inevitably spends some of it. He still doesn't suspect anything. Thinks I'm his perfect wife. Sometimes I almost feel bad. Almost. Timeline, I want this done by Christmas. I want to be free by the new year. Keep being patient. This is going to work. I read it 3 times. Each time the words hit harder. My hands started shaking so badly I had to set the papers down. There's more, Victor said quietly. He pulled out another email. From David Brennan to Ava Montgomery, date October 15th. Subject re-timeline. Update baby, good work on the husband. Keep him motivated but not suspicious. The house is the key. Once you get the mother to sell, everything else falls into place. My investors are ready to move fast on the purchase. Your cut stands at $150K as agreed. But babe, after this is done, no more small-time shit. You've proven yourself. I have bigger projects lined up, elderly targets with real money. You're good at this. Too good to waste on a $600K house flip. Think about it, we could do this 5-6 times a year. Different cities, different targets. You're beautiful, smart, and you know how to play the long game. That's rare. I know you're worried about getting caught, but you won't. These people never see it coming. They want so badly to believe someone young and pretty could actually care about their boring sons or grandsons. They practically hand you the keys. Stay focused. We're almost there. Also miss you. Thursday work for you. Same hotel D. I couldn't breathe. Literally could not get air into my lungs. Victor came around the desk and gently took the papers from my hands. Breathe, Mrs. Dawson. Deep breaths. In through your nose, out through your mouth. I followed his instructions, gasping like I'd been underwater. This isn't just about my house, I finally managed to say. They're running a scam. Multiple scams. She does this to people. This is what she does. Yes, Victor said grimly. It appears that Ava Montgomery, and that may not even be her real name, is a professional con artist. She targets vulnerable men from families with assets, marries them quickly, manipulates them into helping her access those assets, then leaves after she's gotten what she wants. And Marcus has no idea. None. From what I've observed, your son believes he's in a genuine marriage with someone who loves him. He has no idea he's a mark in a long con. I thought about Marcus, my sweet, trusting son who'd lost his father and was just looking for someone to fill that emptiness, who thought he'd found love, who thought he was building a life, who had no idea his wife was planning to destroy him. What about David Brennan? I asked. Is he using her, or are they partners? Partners, I believe. Based on their communication, this isn't his first time doing this either. They work together. He provides the real estate expertise and financial backing. She provides the access through relationships. They split the profits. How many times have they done this? I don't know. I'd need more time to investigate his background thoroughly. But based on what I've seen, this is not their first operation. I closed my eyes, felt tears sliding down my cheeks. My son is married to a professional criminal. Yes. And she's going to leave him broke and heartbroken by New Year's. If her timeline holds, yes, unless you stop her. I opened my eyes and looked at Victor. How? That's not my area of expertise, Mrs. Dawson. I find information. What you do with it is up to you. But I'd recommend 3 things. First, protect your assets immediately. See a lawyer set up trusts, make sure nothing is in your son's name that could be accessed through a spouse. Second, decide if and when to tell Marcus. And third, document everything. Keep copies of all this evidence in multiple locations. If this goes to court, divorce fraud charges, whatever, you'll need it. He closed the folder and pushed it across the desk to me. This is your copy. Everything I found. Photos, financial records, emails, timeline of their activities. Guard it carefully. I took the folder with trembling hands. It was heavy. Heavy with evidence. Heavy with truth. Heavy with the weight of my son's life falling apart. Thank you, I whispered. I'm sorry, Victor said gently. I know this isn't what you wanted to find. No, but it's what I needed to know. I drove home in a daze. The folder sat on the passenger seat like a bomb, which in a way it was. A bomb that would explode my son's life when it detonated, but it would also save him. At home, I sat at the kitchen table and opened the folder again, forced myself to look at every photo, read every email, study every bank statement. This was who Ava really was. Not the lifestyle influencer with the perfect Instagram feed. Not the loving wife. Not the ambitious young woman trying to build something. A predator. Someone who looked at vulnerable people and saw dollar signs. Who studied my son's grief and loneliness and figured out exactly how to exploit it. I thought about the phone call I'd overheard at Marcus's apartment. He doesn't suspect anything. Of course he didn't. Because she was good. She was professional. This was her job. and she'd chosen my son as her next victim. Not anymore, I said aloud to the empty kitchen. I gathered up all the evidence and put it back in the folder. Then I walked to my bedroom, opened the drawer of my nightstand, and placed the folder inside. Next to it, I put Victor's business card and a handwritten list. Next steps: 1. Call Rebecca Harris, estate lawyer, Janice's recommendation. 2. Protect House Living Trust. 3. Document everything. 4. Plan for Christmas Eve. 5. Save Marcus. I looked at that list for a long time. Then I picked up my phone and made the first call. Rebecca Harris's law office was in a new building downtown, all glass and steel, and modern efficiency. Very different from Victor Patel's cramped space above the tax service, but equally professional. The receptionist led me to a conference room where Rebecca was waiting. She was younger than I expected, late 30s maybe, with sharp eyes and a no-nonsense manner that put me at ease immediately. "Mrs. Dawson," she said, standing to shake my hand. "Janice Porter spoke very highly of you. She mentioned you needed help with estate planning and asset protection." "Yes. I need to make sure my house cannot be sold, transferred, or accessed by anyone except me. Not my son, not his wife, not through power of attorney or any other legal mechanism. Is that possible?" Rebecca's eyes sharpened with interest. "It's possible, but that's a very specific request. Are you concerned about someone trying to take advantage of you?" "My daughter-in-law," I said flatly. "She's planning to manipulate my son into convincing me to sell my home so she can profit from it. I have evidence." I pulled out the folder Victor had given me and slid it across the table. Rebecca opened it, read the emails, looked at the photographs, examined the bank statements. Her expression never changed professional neutral, but I saw her jaw tighten. When she finished, she closed the folder and looked at me with something like respect. "This is fraud," she said simply. "Potentially criminal fraud. Have you considered going to the police?" "Not yet. I want to protect myself first, and my son. If she's arrested before I secure my assets, she might try to do something desperate." Rebecca nodded. "Smart. All right, here's what we can do. We'll set up a living trust with you as the trustee and beneficiary during your lifetime. The house goes into the trust. You retain complete control. You can live there, rent it out, whatever you want. But legally, you no longer own it. The trust does. And that means... It means no one can force you to sell. No one can claim power of attorney over trust assets. No one can use your son's relationship to you to access the property. It's completely protected. What happens when I die? The trust specifies your son as the beneficiary after your death. But, and this is important, we can include spendthrift provisions and clauses that protect the inheritance from spousal claims. Essentially, if your son inherits the property, his wife can't touch it in a divorce. It's his alone. Can we also add a clause that if anyone attempts to defraud me or manipulate me into selling, they're automatically excluded from any inheritance?" Rebecca smiled slightly. "Absolutely. That's called a no-contest clause. Very effective deterrent. How long does this take to set up?" "I can have the documents ready in 3 days. You'll need to sign them in front of a notary. Then we file with the county clerk. Once that's done, your house is legally protected. No one can touch it." Relief washed over me like a wave. "Thank you." "Mrs. Dawson," Rebecca said, leaning forward, "can I ask what you're planning to do about your daughter-in-law, because this evidence," she tapped the folder, "is enough to destroy her." "I'm going to tell my son the truth," I said quietly. "On Christmas Eve, I'm going to invite them both to dinner, give them extravagant gifts, and then show Marcus exactly who he married. That's risky. He might not believe you, might choose her over the evidence. I know, but he deserves the chance to see the truth with his own eyes, to make his own choice. If he chooses to stay with her after seeing this, then at least I'll know I tried." Rebecca studied me for a long moment. "You're a brave woman." "No," I said. "I'm just a mother. We'll do anything for our children, even when it means breaking their hearts to save their lives." 3 days later, I returned to Rebecca's office. The trust documents were ready, 47 pages of legal language that essentially built an impenetrable wall around my home. I signed every page. My hand didn't shake. This was the right thing to do. The only thing to do. Rebecca notarized the documents, made copies, and filed them electronically with the county clerk's office. "As of right now," she said, "your house is protected. Congratulations, Mrs. Dawson. You just made yourself lawsuit-proof." I walked out of that office feeling stronger than I had in months, maybe years. Ava could scheme all she wanted. She could whisper in Marcus's ear, could try to make him feel guilty, could use every manipulation tactic in her playbook. It wouldn't matter, because my house was no longer mine to sell. It belonged to the Dawson Family Trust, and I was the only one with access. She'd lost before she even knew she was playing. That evening, I sat down at my kitchen table with a notebook and pen. At the top of the page, I wrote Christmas Eve plan. Then I started writing. Guests, Marcus and Ava only menu. All Marcus's favorites: roast turkey garlic, mashed potatoes, cornbread cranberry sauce, apple pie timing. Dinner at 6 p.m., gifts at 7:30, revelation at 8:00, gifts. Marcus BMW. I'd been saving. He needed a reliable car. Ava Hermes Birkin bag, $12,000. The bait that would make her comfortable unsuspecting the reveal. After they give me nothing or humiliate me, somehow I could feel it coming. Present the evidence folder. Let Marcus read it himself. Stay calm, no emotions, just facts. Give him space to process. Offer him a place to stay when he's ready to leave her. I stared at that last line. When he's ready to leave her. Not if, when. Because once Marcus saw those emails, once he understood how completely he'd been used, he would leave. He had to. My son was a good man. Ray and I had raised him to value honesty, integrity, loyalty. When he saw proof that his wife had none of those things, when he understood that their entire relationship was a lie, designed to steal from his mother, he would leave. He had to. I closed the notebook and went to bed sleeping better than I had in weeks, because I wasn't helpless anymore, wasn't passive, wasn't waiting for someone else to destroy my family. I was taking action. Building defenses. Preparing for war. And when Christmas Eve came, Ava Montgomery was going to learn that the sweet, lonely old widow she'd targeted was not what she seemed. I was a mother protecting her child. And there's nothing more dangerous than that. November disappeared in a blur of planning and waiting. I went through the motions of normal life grocery shopping, book club, tending the garden, but inside I was counting down to Christmas Eve like a soldier preparing for battle. I didn't hear much from Marcus. A text here and there. Busy with work. Talk soon. Each message felt more distant than the last, like he was slowly fading away from me. But I didn't push, didn't call, didn't beg for his attention. Because soon, very soon, everything would change. In mid-November, I went to the BMW dealership on Airport Road. The salesman, a friendly man named Tom who reminded me of Ray, showed me several certified pre-owned models. What's your budget, ma'am? Around $30,000. It needs to be reliable, safe, and something a young professional would be proud to drive. Tom's eyes lit up. I have just the thing. He showed me a 3-year-old BMW 3 Series in midnight blue. Low mileage, single owner, immaculate condition. The leather interior still smelled new. The dashboard gleamed. Your son is going to love this, Tom said. I hope so, I replied, running my hand along the hood. This car cost nearly everything I had left in savings after Ray's medical bills and funeral expenses. But it was worth it. Worth seeing Marcus's face light up. Worth showing him that his mother still believed in him, still loved him, even when he'd pushed me away. I wrote the check. Tom arranged for the car to be detailed and topped off with gas. On Christmas Eve, I could pick it up and drive it home, park it in my garage, hidden from view until the right moment. Big red bow, Tom asked with a grin. The biggest you have. The Hermes bag was harder to acquire. I'd never bought anything that expensive in my life. Ray and I were comfortable, but we weren't luxury handbag people. We saved for retirement for Marcus's college fund for emergencies. A $12,000 purse would have seemed insane, but this wasn't about the purse. This was about bait. I went to the Hermes boutique in downtown Naples on a Tuesday afternoon when I knew it would be quiet. The store was elegant in a way that made me feel old and out of place. White marble floors, glass cases, beautifully dressed saleswomen who looked like they'd stepped out of fashion magazines. A young woman approached me with a professional smile. Good afternoon. How may I help you? I need a Birkin bag, I said, trying to sound confident. The nice one, for a gift. Her smile warmed slightly. Oh, how lovely. Birkin bags are quite special. Did you have a color preference? Something neutral, elegant. The kind a young woman would show off on Instagram. She led me to a private viewing room and brought out several options. I chose a 35-centimeter Birkin in taupe, understated, expensive-looking, the kind of bag that screamed wealth without being gaudy. "This is our Togo leather," the saleswoman explained. "Very durable, very sought after, an excellent choice. How much this particular piece is $12,500. I didn't flinch, didn't hesitate, just pulled out my checkbook. The saleswoman's eyebrows rose slightly. "I'll need to verify the funds, of course." "Of course." 20 minutes later, I walked out of that boutique with a shopping bag that weighed almost nothing but cost more than some people's cars. The bag was wrapped in tissue paper, sealed in a protective sleeve, placed in an orange box tied with brown ribbon. Perfect bait for a woman who valued appearances over everything. I imagined Ava's face when she opened it, the way her eyes would light up, the way she'd immediately want to photograph it, post it, show off her generous mother-in-law who gave such expensive gifts. She'd feel safe, comfortable, like she'd won, right up until the moment I destroyed her. December arrived with cooler weather, at least cooler by Florida standards. The temperature dropped into the 60s, and people actually wore light jackets in the evenings. I spent the first week of December decorating the house, not because I felt festive, but because I needed everything to look perfect. Normal, like a grandmother excited to celebrate Christmas with her family. I pulled out the boxes from the attic, 40 years of accumulated decorations. Ray and I had collected ornaments from every place we'd traveled, every milestone in Marcus's life. Baby's first Christmas, Disney World 1995, Marcus's college graduation, our 40th wedding anniversary. I hung them all on the tree in the living room, the same tree we'd put up every year for decades. White lights not colored, Ray had always preferred white lights. Glass ornaments that caught and reflected the glow. Tinsel that Marcus used to throw by the handful when he was little, giggling as it stuck to everything. The house looked beautiful, warm, inviting, like a home where a family loved each other. The irony wasn't lost on me. On December 15th, I sent Marcus a text. Casual, light, the kind of text a normal mother would send. "Hi, sweetheart. I'm doing a small Christmas Eve dinner this year. Just you and Ava. Would love to have you both here. Let me know if you can make it. Love you." 3 hours passed, then 5, then 8. I was starting to think he wouldn't respond at all when my phone finally buzzed at 9 p.m. "Marcus, that sounds nice, Mom. Let me check with Ava." Not yes, not we'd love to. Let me check with Ava. Like he needed permission to see his own mother. 20 minutes later, another text came through. But this one wasn't from Marcus. "Ava, hi, Olivia. Marcus showed me your text. We'd love to come for Christmas Eve. So sweet of you to invite us. Should we bring anything?" I stared at that message, at the exclamation points, at the false enthusiasm, at the fact that she was responding, not my son. I typed back, "Just yourselves. Dinner at 6. Ava, perfect, can't wait." I set down my phone and took a deep breath. She was coming. They were both coming. In 9 days, this would all be over. The week before Christmas, I rehearsed. I know it sounds strange, but I actually practiced in front of the mirror. Practiced staying calm. Practiced my facial expressions. Practiced what I would say when the moment came. "Marcus, I need to show you something." Too dramatic. "Sweetheart, there's something you need to know." Too ominous. "I have some information about Ava that I think you should see." Too formal. Finally, I settled on something simple. "If tonight is about lessons, then let me teach you something." It felt right, dignified but strong. A response to whatever humiliation Ava was planning, because I knew she was planning something. The email had said Christmas. She had a timeline. Something was going to happen that night that would make me look weak, desperate, easy to manipulate. I was ready for it. In fact, I was counting on it. Janice came over on December 23rd. She brought homemade cookies and sat with me at the kitchen table while I made final preparations. "Are you sure you want to do this?" she asked. "Once you show him that evidence, there's no taking it back." "I'm sure. He might not believe you, might think you fabricated it." Victor Patel's report includes digital forensics, timestamps, IP addresses, court-admissible evidence. Marcus might not want to believe it, but he won't be able to deny it. Janice nodded slowly. "And if he chooses her anyway?" "I'd thought about this. Thought about it a lot." "Then at least he'll make that choice with his eyes open," I said. "At least he'll know the truth. What he does with that truth is up to him. I can't control that. I can only control whether I tell him or stay silent." "You're brave, Olivia." "No, I'm just done being a victim in my own life. Janice squeezed my hand. Ray would be proud of you. Tears stung my eyes. I hope so. We sat in silence for a moment, the kitchen warm with cookie-scented air and afternoon sunlight. What will you do after? Janice asked. After tomorrow night. I don't know. If Marcus leaves her when he leaves her, I'll help him however I can. If he stays... I took a breath. If he stays, then I'll have to accept that I did everything I could. And I'll have to let him go. That would break your heart. It already is broken, I said quietly. At least this way I'll know I fought for him. I woke up at 5 a.m. on Christmas Eve. Couldn't sleep anymore. Too much nervous energy coursing through my body. I made coffee and sat on the back porch watching the sky lighten from black to deep blue to purple to pink. Ray's garden was blooming poinsettias he'd planted 3 years ago, red and bright in the morning light. He'd loved Christmas. Loved the lights and the music and the excuse to be generous. Give me strength today, I whispered to the garden to the sky to raise memory. Help me do this right. The sky didn't answer, but I felt something settle in my chest. Calm. Determination. I was ready. I spent the morning cooking. Started with the turkey, 14 pounds rubbed with butter and herbs, stuffed with Ray's cornbread dressing recipe. I'd made this turkey dozens of times over the years. Could probably do it in my sleep. While it roasted, I made the sides. Mashed potatoes with real butter and cream the way Marcus loved them. Green beans with bacon and onions. Cranberry sauce from scratch, not the canned kind with the ridges. Ray's mother's cornbread recipe, the one that required buttermilk and a cast-iron skillet, and patience. The house filled with the smell of home, of family dinners and holidays and love. By noon, the turkey was done. I covered it with foil to rest. Set the table with the good china, the white plates with blue flowers that Ray and I got as a wedding gift 43 years ago. Cloth napkins, the silver candlesticks. Everything looked perfect. At 2 p.m., I drove to the BMW dealership. Tom was waiting with the car detailed gassed up with an enormous red bow on the hood. "Merry Christmas, Mrs. Dawson," he said with a warm smile. "Your son is a lucky man." "I hope he knows that," I said quietly. I drove the BMW home carefully, my old Honda following behind, courtesy of Tom's assistant, who would drive it back to the dealership. I pulled into my garage and closed the door. The car sat there gleaming in the dim light, a $30,000 symbol of a mother's love. Or maybe a mother's desperation. I went back inside and placed the small jewelry box with the car keys under the tree. Next to it, I set the orange Hermes box with its brown ribbon. 2 gifts, 2 very different messages. For Marcus, I believe in you. I support you. I love you. For Ava, I'm still trying to win your approval. I'm still the foolish old woman you think I am. Both messages were lies in their own way, but tonight the truth would finally come out. At 4 p.m., I went upstairs and got ready. I showered, did my hair, put on makeup more than usual because I wanted to look strong. In control. Not like a victim. I chose a simple blue dress, the one Marcus had complimented years ago. Pearl earrings Ray gave me for our 25th anniversary. My wedding ring, which I still wore every day, even though Ray was gone. I looked at myself in the mirror. 73 years old. Gray hair, lines around my eyes. Hands that showed decades of work. But my eyes were clear, steady, determined. You can do this, I told my reflection. Then I went downstairs to wait. They arrived at 6 p.m. exactly. I heard Marcus's Honda pull into the driveway. He'd sold his old car months ago, probably to help with expenses he couldn't afford thanks to Ava's secret debt. I took a deep breath, smoothed my dress, and opened the door. Marcus stood on the porch holding a bottle of wine. He looked tired, more tired than any 35-year-old should look. Dark circles under his eyes. A tightness around his mouth that hadn't been there 6 months ago. But when he saw me, he smiled. A real smile, the kind that crinkled his eyes. "Hey, Mom. Merry Christmas." "Merry Christmas, sweetheart." I hugged him, and for just a moment, one perfect moment, he hugged me back the way he used to. Tight, safe, like I was still his anchor in the world. Then Ava stepped out of the car and the moment ended. She was wearing a designer dress I'd never seen before, something that probably cost more than my monthly grocery budget. Her hair was perfect. Her makeup flawless. She looked like she was going to a charity gala, not dinner at her mother-in-law's house. She scrolled on her phone as she walked up the driveway, her heels clicking on the concrete. "Merry Christmas, Olivia," she said without looking up. Perfunctory. Automatic. Merry Christmas, Ava. Come in, please. Dinner's almost ready. Marcus stepped inside and stopped. His eyes went wide as he took in the decorated tree, the set table, the warm light from the candles I'd lit. Mom, this is wow. You went all out. I wanted it to be special, I said. And I meant it. This would be the last Christmas we spent together one way or another. Either Marcus would see the truth and leave Ava, or he would choose to believe her lies, and I would lose my son. Either way, nothing would ever be the same after tonight. We moved into the dining room. I'd set 3 places, me at the head of the table where Ray used to sit Marcus and Ava on either side. Ava sat down and immediately pulled out her phone. She photographed her place setting from multiple angles, then started typing. Marcus watched her with something in his eyes I couldn't quite read. Not quite irritation, not quite sadness, something in between. Ava maybe put the phone away for dinner, he said gently. She glanced up, smiled that practiced smile. Just posting real quick. Your mom worked so hard on this. My followers will love it. She took a photo of the whole table, then one of the turkey I was carrying in from the kitchen. Click, click, click. Caption post done. Then finally she set the phone face down on the table. This looks amazing, Olivia, she said. You really outdid yourself. I served the food, carved the turkey, passed the dishes, watched Marcus fill his plate with the eagerness of someone who hadn't had a home-cooked meal in too long. This is incredible, Mom, he said around a mouthful of mashed potatoes. Seriously, I forgot how good your cooking is. I'm glad you like it, sweetheart. Ava picked at her food, moving it around her plate without really eating. She took a small bite of turkey, a fork full of green beans. Then she set down her fork and reached for her phone again. Sorry, just need to check something, she murmured. Marcus's jaw tightened, but he said nothing. I watched this play out, my son trying to enjoy a meal while his wife ignored everything around her. And I thought about the emails Victor had shown me, the cold calculation in Ava's words. Sometimes I almost feel bad. Almost. She didn't feel bad. Didn't feel anything except greed and ambition and the thrill of getting away with a con. But not for much longer. We ate in near silence. I asked Marcus about work. He told me about his promotion he'd gotten, it finally the one he'd been working toward for months. I was genuinely happy for him. Proud. That's wonderful, sweetheart. Your father would be so proud. Something flickered across Marcus's face. Pain, maybe, or regret. Thanks, Mom. I wish he was here. Me too, honey. Every day. Ava's phone buzzed. She glanced at it and I saw her expression change. Just for a second. A flash of something excitement, nervousness. She typed a quick response, then looked up with a bright smile. So Olivia, Marcus told me you've been doing well. House keeping you busy. There it was, the opening she'd been waiting for. Oh, you know, it's a lot of space for one person. But it's home. Have you ever thought about downsizing? Ava asked, her voice carefully casual. I mean, there's so much equity in a house this size. You could sell it, move somewhere smaller, easier to maintain. And you'd have money left over to enjoy your retirement. Marcus shifted uncomfortably. Ava, we talked about this. I'm just saying it seems like a lot of work for your mom. Right, Olivia? All this space, all this upkeep? I set down my fork carefully. I managed just fine, and I'm not ready to leave the house Ray and I built together. Of course, Ava said smoothly. I just worry about you being alone here. What if something happened? What if you fell and no one found you for days? It was manipulation 101. Plant the fear. Make the target feel vulnerable. Then offer the solution that benefits you. But I'd spent 3 months learning all her tricks. That's very thoughtful of you to worry, I said with a smile. But I have neighbors who check on me, and Janice stops by regularly. I'm quite safe. Ava's smile tightened just slightly. Well, if you ever change your mind, Marcus and I would be happy to help you find something perfect. Right, honey. Marcus looked miserable. Mom, you know we just want what's best for you. I know, sweetheart, but what I wanted to say was, do you know what's best for you? Do you have any idea who you're married to soon? Very soon. We finished dinner. I brought out the apple pie I'd made Ray's favorite with a lattice crust and cinnamon sugar on top. I can't, Ava said, patting her flat stomach. Too many carbs. Marcus ate 2 slices. After dinner, Marcus helped me clear the table. Just the 2 of us in the kitchen like old times. Mom, he said quietly as he scraped plates. I'm sorry about Ava. She means well. She just worries about you. I know she does, I lied. She's been under a lot of stress lately. Work stuff, money stuff. She doesn't mean to be. He trailed off, searching for the word. Pushy, I supplied. He gave me a weak smile. Yeah, pushy. Marcus, are you happy? The question seemed to catch him off guard. He stopped mid-scrape and looked at me. What oh? Are you happy, really happy? He opened his mouth, closed it, opened it again. Yeah. I mean, marriage is an adjustment, you know. It's not always easy, but yeah, I'm happy. He wasn't. I could see it in his eyes, in the slump of his shoulders, in the way he couldn't quite meet my gaze. But he wanted to be happy, wanted to believe he'd made the right choice, wanted his marriage to work. I touched his arm. You know I love you. Right, no matter what. I know, Mom. I love you too. From the living room, Ava called out. Marcus, can you come here for a second? The moment broke. Marcus gave me an apologetic smile and walked out. I stood alone in the kitchen, gripping the edge of the counter, preparing myself for what came next. Because I knew in my bones that whatever Ava was about to do, whatever humiliation she had planned, it was about to happen. I dried my hands on a dish towel, took a deep breath, walked into the living room with my head held high. The living room looked like a Christmas card. The tree glowed with white lights. The presents I'd arranged underneath looked festive and generous. The whole scene radiated warmth and family and love. But the air felt electric, charged with something I couldn't quite name. Should we do gifts? I asked, keeping my voice light and cheerful. Marcus looked almost relieved. Sure. Yeah, let's do gifts. I picked up the small jewelry box first, the one with the BMW keys inside. My hands were steady as I held it out to Marcus. This is for you, sweetheart. He took it, looking puzzled. Mom, you didn't have to get me anything. I wanted to. Open it. He lifted the lid, stared at the keys with the BMW logo. His face went blank. Mom, are these? Check the garage. Marcus stood slowly like he was in a dream. He walked to the side door that led to the garage, opened it, and flipped on the light. I heard his sharp intake of breath. Mom, is that a BMW? It's yours. He turned back to me, his eyes wide with shock. And something else. Something that looked almost like tears. I can't. This is too much. This must have cost. You deserve something nice, I said firmly. You work hard. You've been through a difficult year. I wanted to do this for you. Marcus walked back into the living room in a daze. Then suddenly he crossed the space between us and hugged me. A real hug. The kind that made my heart ache with how much I'd missed this. Thank you, he whispered. Thank you so much. I don't know what to say. You don't have to say anything. I love you. That's what mothers do. Over his shoulder, I saw Ava watching us. Her expression was calculating. Not happy for her husband. Not touched by a mother's generosity. Calculating. She saw an opportunity. Saw a woman so desperate for her son's love that she'd spend $30,000 to get a hug. She thought she'd won. I pulled back from Marcus and picked up the second gift. The orange Hermes box with its brown ribbon. And this is for you, Ava. Her eyes lit up, actually lit up when she saw the Hermes logo. She took the box with barely contained excitement, set it on the couch, and untied the ribbon with careful fingers. When she lifted the lid and saw the Birkin bag inside her mouth actually fell open. Oh my God. She lifted it out reverently, running her hands over the leather. Is this real? Of course it's real. Olivia, this is a Birkin. Do you know how much these cost? I know exactly how much it cost. Ava immediately pulled out her phone and started taking photos. The bag from every angle. A selfie with the bag. A photo of the box and tissue paper. This is perfect for my Instagram, she said, already typing a caption. My followers are going to die. She didn't say thank you, didn't look at me, just photographed her new possession and posted it to social media. Marcus was frowning now. Ava, maybe say thank you. She glanced up, smile automatic. Oh, right. Thank you, Olivia. This is very generous. The words were hollow, meaningless. She'd already gone back to her phone, editing the photo, adding filters. Marcus looked embarrassed. And something else. something that might have been the first crack in his belief. "Mom," he said, his voice strained, "you really didn't have to spend this much. This is too much." "I wanted both of you to have something special," I said, and then I sat down in Ray's chair by the window and folded my hands in my lap. And I waited, because this was the moment. I could feel it coming. The humiliation Ava had planned. The lesson she wanted to teach me about giving without expectations. Marcus stood there holding the BMW keys, looking uncomfortable. He glanced at Ava, who was still absorbed in her phone. "Ava," he said quietly, "we should give Mom her gift." Ava looked up, and something passed across her face, something cold and satisfied. "Oh," she said. "Right, about that." She set down her phone and her new Birkin bag, stood up and walked to where Marcus stood. "We didn't get you anything this year, Olivia." The words landed like stones in the quiet room. I didn't move, didn't react, just looked at her with calm, steady eyes. "I see," I said quietly. Marcus looked sick. "Ava, what are you—" She put her hand on his arm. "We talked about this, honey. Remember—" "No, we didn't talk about—" "It's a lesson in generosity." Ava continued, her voice taking on a lecturing tone. "True giving means not expecting anything in return. You should learn to give without strings attached, Olivia, without needing validation or reciprocation." She was smiling, actually smiling, like she'd just imparted great wisdom instead of delivering a calculated insult. "Besides," she added, looking around the living room with a sweeping gesture, "you have everything you need. This big house, all this space. What could we possibly give you that would mean anything?" Marcus's face had gone pale. "Mom, I didn't— This isn't what I—" But I barely heard him, because this was it. The moment I'd been waiting for. The moment when Ava showed me exactly who she was thinking I was too weak, too desperate for approval, too pathetic to fight back. She thought she'd won. She thought wrong. I reached down and opened the drawer beside Ray's chair. My hand was perfectly steady as I pulled out the thick manila folder Victor Patel had given me. I stood up slowly, walked to the coffee table between us, set the folder down with a heavy thud. The sound seemed to echo in the sudden silence. "You're absolutely right, Ava," I said, my voice calm and clear. "Tonight is about lessons." I looked directly at her, and I watched her smile falter. "So let me teach you something.